And so I lived in Chicago and was born and raised in Maine, which is why I'm a New England Patriots fan. I came out the womb screaming, Tom Brady. Okay, so Tom Brady wasn't around when I was there, but Tom Brady though, right? And so was born and raised in Maine, and I'm biracial. Everybody thinks I'm Puerto Rican. Puerto Riqueña, and I'm okay with that. I'm not Puerto Rican, I'm sort of Rican. And, but I'm actually half Irish and half black, so my rap. And I grew up in the 70s, right, in Maine, and then I moved to North Carolina, and have only been in Chicago for 10 years. Since I've been in Chicago, I've done a little bit of everything, and was a youth pastor, but the youth pastoring thing was not my thing. Because I have this thing about being inside church walls and not being set free. And as much as I tried to get the church to hit the block and hit the community, it just wasn't happening. And so I heard God's call to live life passionately. Right? Life is too short. Just because I'm good at it doesn't mean I should be doing it. Life should be about living passionately. And so I stepped down as the youth pastor, and I told the pastor that if one more kid comes to me and talks to me about, my mama took my cell phone away, when there was a kid that just got shot and is struggling for his life, and you're complaining about the cell phone, I'd be the one catching the case. And so that's when I knew I had to step down as youth pastor and let somebody else come in and love and disciple. And that's not my calling. There's a need for that, but I needed to be on the block. And so stepped down as youth pastor, didn't know what that meant. And God said, okay, so God and I, we talk really God he doesn't say, thou with Amieth, He's like, yo, baby girl, check this out. That's how I receive him. And he's like, yo, this is what I need you to do. I need you to move into a gang neighborhood. And why not make it the motherland of the almighty Latin King nation, Beach and Spalding. It started in Humboldt Park. It started in Chicago on Beach and Spalding. And I'm like, what was that? And he was like, move into that neighborhood. So we had this conversation. I was going back and forth, and I was like, you got jokes. You're so funny, Jesus. You are hilarious. I can love them from over here and just kind of go into the neighborhood. And God was like, move. And I was like, okay, look at this. I'm your creation. I am too fine to be walking the streets. Look at this. I'm your idea. You created this. I'm too fine. And God said, you ain't that fine. And I'm like, you're right. I'm not that fine. I can lose about 10 pounds. So we're going back and forth about living in this community. And then God said one thing that changed everything for me. And that's just how God does it. God's like, all right, let me just get to the chase. He said, that's my hood. I'm already there. Those are my people. I love them. I'm very present there. Only thing I'm asking you to do is to be a light in a kid's darkness. I got this. But that neighborhood needs more light. And that was all that it took. And so I moved into this, what we call these flats in Chicago, and I moved into the 2-flat, and I live on the top floor because I ain't stupid, right? I mean, I may be fine, but I ain't stupid. Because if I'm a single woman living in a gang neighborhood, you got to do some work to get to me, right? You're going to have to climb and propel from a helicopter onto the roof, and I'm not going to make it easy for you to come and get me, right? So I live on the second floor. And the beautiful thing about this house, among many, many other things, is if you can see it, see that little black light lamp post? At night, it is the only one on the street, and you can see it 2 blocks down. It is so bright. And every time I come home and leave, I look at that light, and it's a reminder of what God has called me to do. To be a light in a kid's darkness. I don't have a plan. I don't have a budget. I got the Holy Spirit. I wake up and I'm like, what are we going to do today? And that's as simple as just walking the block, loving on kids, walking life with them. It's as simple as going to Little Caesars, picking up a couple pizzas, walking around passing out pizza. I got a cell phone that has a ton of instrumental beats, and it's just getting around the car and letting the guys freestyle, right? Because I'm a hip-hop head, so like hip-hop is like everything to me. And it's as simple as going to every court date. It's as simple as meeting the parents. It's as simple as driving around at 9:30 in the morning to see who missed the school bus and who thinks they getting away with not going to school. And me saying, go get your book bag, I'm going to take you to school. Oh, man. Miss Amy, really? Really? It's too cold. It's Chicago. Get your butt. It's supposed to be cold. Come on. Right? It's walking life with them. It's burying some of them. Yesterday, I found out one of my kids who was murdered the next street over, they just found his killer after 2 years. And I rejoice in that, right? Like, I was like, yeah! And then I'm like, but that's the kid that's broken too. Right? And so I don't know from day to day what it looks like. I've created basketball teams with my kids. I find open gyms. I mean, whatever it means, whatever it looks like. And so now we've gone to it being they and them to we and us. I live here now too. This is my block. This is my community. I actually, the first 2 months that I moved in there, one of my boys robbed me. I went to go see the movie Avatar, and y'all know how long that movie is. I mean, it's like 5 hours. They had plenty of time to just go in and watch a little TV, smoke a joint in my house, have some food, rob it, and then leave. Because Avatar it just took forever. And I remember coming back, and of course being traumatized by it, and went through all of that stuff. And I'm like, for everything that I do with these kids, and da-da-da. And see, I'm not also known as the brownie lady on my block, so I always just keep brownies because I know how to make some brownies. And not those kind of brownies. I see some of y'all like, I know I'm in Denver. I know I'm in Colorado. I know it's legal here. And so making my brownies. The dudes that robbed me, I had just made some fresh brownies that morning. Yo, they ate some of my brownies. I came back in the tinfoil and and I'm like, wow, y'all were high, like for real, right? And I remember going through all of this. And I remember walking the block a couple days later because I knew who did it, so I went looking for him. Like, that don't scare me. Like, I'm like, where Kiko at? Let me know. I went to the Incas, I went to the chief. I was like, let me tell you what your boy did. Because the Almighty Latin King Nation, you're not supposed to rob your own neighborhood. And if you rob your own neighborhood, you get a violation. Now, I didn't want this kid to get beat. Okay, so I did. Forgive me, Jesus. Okay, I told you I'm a hot mess. But I wanted, everybody to know I'm looking for this kid. And I mean, he dug for me for like 2 months. I couldn't find him. I called his mama. Like, I was on it. And then he did another residential burglary and got locked up for like 2 or 3 years. But I remember a bunch of kids then coming to me and saying, so, you gonna leave the neighborhood now? And I knew exactly what they were doing. And I said, why would I leave the neighborhood? I got renter's insurance. I'm getting all that stuff back. This is my neighborhood, and I love y'all. I'm not going anywhere. And the level of respect went from, I don't know about this woman, to bam, this is our girl. Because they just wanted to see, and was I going to stick around? Was I going to be one of these in and outers again, like most people that come into the neighborhood? And that was very hard for me. Don't understand me. I didn't walk in like, oh, my house has been robbed. Okay, let me keep loving these kids. I was like, those mother, ooh. And I was just like, the Holy Spirit just kind of set aside, and I just went like gangsta on them. And I was hurt, and I was traumatized, and I was scared, and like I went through all of that, But I knew that God had called me into his hood. And I understand who I was and who I wasn't. I wasn't God, I wasn't Jesus, and I'm not the savior of that block. But I'm a light in a kid's darkness. Most of the kids, and so you can go to the next slide. So we're just going to kind of leave this one up for a little bit because that is the message of what I believe God has called us to as we try to impact our community. Is to be that light in darkness. Is to be hope. in the life of a young person, in the life of an older person, and just in somebody's life that needs hope. Hope is powerful. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But most of the kids in my community, they plan for their funerals and not their futures. I could ask a kid, so what do you want to be in 5 years? Tell me about your funeral. Well, and then they just start bringing it up. I want this color, I want this casket, I want this person. And I'm like, but you don't know what you want to do in 5 years? 5 years? Like, dude, 5 minutes. I'm just on 5 minutes. Walking down the block. This is one of my most favorite quotes by a gentleman named Father Greg Boyle, who runs the largest gang ministry out of Los Angeles called Homeboy Industries. And he says the reason why that so many young people get in trouble or they join gangs is because of a lethal absence of hope. Not just an absence of hope, lethal absence of hope. He says that if someone can't imagine a future for themselves, then the present, it doesn't compel them. Today doesn't matter if they can't see a future for themselves. If his present doesn't compel him, then he doesn't care if he inflicts harm on somebody or on himself. He doesn't see he has a future, so he doesn't care about what he does today. So he's just in the moment. A lethal absence of hope. And so we're called to be those hope dealers in such darkness. And so let's read a couple of scriptures that show us some of this. And so we have John 8:12. It says, and Jesus spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not abide in darkness. John 12:46 says, I have come into the light. No, wait a minute. Isaiah 42:16. I just cut and paste. I will lead the blind. Well, let me just read John 12:46. I have come as a light into the world, that whoever believes in me shall not abide in darkness. Isaiah 42:16 says, I will lead the blind. And how many know that it just doesn't mean those that can't see, but those that spiritually can't see, right? I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them, and I will make the rough places smooth. These are the things that I will do, and I will not forsake them. This isn't like commentary, right? Like, these are promises. These are promises. This is God's heart. This is God's desire to take people out of darkness into light. Whatever your darkness looks like, whatever light means to you. If light means joy, peace, healing, it's all there. Next slide. Matthew 5:14-16 says, you are the light of the world. A city on it, a city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on the stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. How many of y'all know when the storms are rolling and the thunder comes and there's this the electricity in your house goes off? What's the first thing you do? You run for a candle. And that little itty bitty candle, it's amazing how much light it can give off in an entire room of darkness in the middle of a storm when your source has been cut off. That's a whole other sermon right there. Write that down, Adler. Bring that on. Let your light shine. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. And then the next scripture, which is one of my favorite. You can go to the next slide, sweetie. Go to the next one. Let me see if it's in there. Go to the next one. Yeah. I love this. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. And if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry, and you satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like noonday. That is a promise. He's like, please spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry. Satisfy the needs of the oppressed. If you do that, then I promise you that that light will come from you and the darkness will disappear and night will become like noonday. In Psalm 139, it talks about how like to God, darkness is light and like it's the same. It's a calling for us to be that. Go back one. It's a calling for us to be hope dealers. Right? So I was, thou shalt not lose hope. I'm adding like to the Bible, right? This is 1 Chicagoans 773. Thou shalt not lose hope. I am a hope dealer. I'm here. I'm here. I got that hope. I got that hope. You need some of that hope? Come on, that's right. I got it. I got it. Go around the parking lot. I should get little bottles to say I got some hope, or little. What I should do is get like little bags that they put weed and crack cocaine in and be like, I got that hope, and just have some scriptures in that. I got that hope, what's up? Right? The police on the block know me, so they're like, oh, that shit going in, Miss Williams. I'm like, you need that hope too, though. Because I know what you've been doing too. You're a shady little. Okay, and so let's go forward and let's keep it. One more, and one more, and one more. Forward. Yeah, let's just leave it there. We're going to leave it here for the rest of the time. And so why hope? Why should we use the message of hope? The world defines hope as kind of this thing that might happen. It's an expectation. It's a possibility. But the word hope in Hebrew and Greek translates, and it means a strong and confident expectation. Our hope is a sure thing. The world's hope is a possibility. Our hope is in Christ. Our hope is that we were created for a purpose. Our hope is that we have worth. Our hope is that God is going to use us. Our hope is that He can take us out of darkness and He can heal our brokenness and He can take this grimy, messy, complicated, but beautiful woman and use her for His glory. My prayer is always, God, I give you permission to show up and to show off. Use me to show off you. Show off. And we use hope because hope changes the way we see ourselves. Hope changes what we value. Hope affects the things that we do. If you know that you have a future and you have hope in that, then you're not going to do risky situations. You're not going to be on the block risking your life at 2 o'clock at night knowing that there's a rival thing going on. If you have hope, you're going to be like, dog, like, I got a daughter and I want her to go to college, and so I can't be hanging out here on the block like this at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, it just changes what you value when you have hope. But when you have hope, you don't care about nothing. You don't. In the work that I do, and in the work that you guys are called to do in this community or the community that you're in or just wherever you're called, you got to understand you can't scare a kid straight. You have to care him straight. That's right. Come on. Our kids they experience fear all the time, but care is something that they don't experience enough of. The problem isn't that kids aren't scared enough, it's that they're not hopeful enough. I look at those programs and I think about that Beyond Scared Straight where they take kids in the prison to scare them. And you look at some of the kids are scared. A lot of them aren't because they're like, this is every day for me. My parents yell at me all the time. You yelling at me it doesn't concern me. Me being locked up, that's my cousin, that's my boy, and I got a family already in prison. You trying to scare me out of prison? But if you care that kid straight, he'd be like, yo, I have this one boy, and I have just so many stories, but I have this one kid named Alex, and he's been in and out of the system since he was like 11 years old, and I worked with him when he was on parole, and I'm just a hugger. I have a hug ministry, right? Like, and I just believe in the power of touch and the gentleness, the healing, And I have to be careful with that because I only work with boys. And so, I don't want boys to misinterpret my love for them. But at the same time, I don't want to deprive them of it either. Right? So when I hug, you're being loved, right? And so I have this kid, and every time I would see him, I'd be like, Alice, puppy, come here, let me give you some love. And I just give him this big hug. He'd be like, oh, like it was just uncomfortable for him. He'd be like, oh, back up. Like, what are you doing, And I was just like, sorry, like, that's just who I am. And every time I see you, I'm going to hug you. So if you don't want to hug, like, you need to be avoiding me. And I was like, but even that's not going to work, because then I'm going to find you, and then I'm going to hug you anyway. So just take it. Right? But we had issues every single time I saw him and gave him a hug. So one day I decided I wasn't going to give him a hug. So I'm just sitting there and he walks in. He's like, hi, Amy. I was like, what's up? Whatever. And I just kind of have a good one. He's just like, what happened? Right? And I just kind of kept going on with my day. And he was disturbed by that. So I let him like wrestle in that for a little bit, And then he came to me and he was like, are you okay? What's different with you? And I'm like, yo, like I'm on fire, like this is the best day I ever had, like, just going on and on. And he was like, okay, because you didn't hug me. And I was like, thought you didn't want my love. I was like, I knew you loved me. And I just jumped right on him, right? And so now he has this expectation and he wants it. He would never tell me he was. He would never tell me he wants it. But he does. The love that we can share. I can't scare this kid. He's seen it all. He's seen people shot in front of him. He's probably shot some people himself. He's been in and out of the juvenile justice system. But caring for him, he didn't get it. He still doesn't get it. He still, to this day, doesn't get it. When I just show up on the block to spend time and take him to get something to eat, he doesn't get it. And I always tell kids, you cannot judge a book by its cover. But you also can't judge a book by its first chapter. Every person that is breathing still has the opportunity to write the rest of the book. And they can write that book the way that they want to. And so whenever I'm with my boys who think that they don't have hope and they don't have a chance, I'm like, look, the first part of your book is already written. That's on lock. Even God can't change what has happened in the past, right? That's on lock. But you can still write the rest of your book. What do you want it to say? What do you want it to look like? I don't even know what it looks like, but I'm willing to walk with you and help you write it. But what I do know is that God has a plan and a purpose for your life. You can't change that either. You can't change that either. You can ignore it, but you can't change it. So at what point are we going to write a different? How's your story going to end? We have to infuse people with hope, and we have to help them imagine a future. Even if they can't imagine one for themselves right now, as hope dealers, we are called to help them imagine their future. Not tell them what their future is going to be like, but help them imagine it. Help them dream. Help them have a different world view. We have kids on the block who have grown up in Chicago and have never been downtown. Have never been to the top of the Sears Tower. And that's one of my favorite things to do, because I'll take them to the top of the Sears Tower and I'll be like, and you can see 4 different states. And I'll be like, okay, now, show me where your block is. From here. Go. As much and as hard as they try, they cannot find it. And I'm like, so do you realize how small your world is? And how vast? And how many opportunities are out there for you? Your block is your prison. And so we have to help people imagine a future. We have to give them hope. We have to give them a different world view. And I'm almost done. And so as you think about it, you go out into these communities and I always ask this question. When you are out on the block, in your neighborhood, at your job. What is your goal when you're ministering to someone? Is it to get them to church or is it to get them to Christ? Christ. There's a difference. I have church at McDonald's. I have church on the block. I have church at the movie theater, in the girls' bathroom if I have to. As we think about outreach, as we think about what that means, we have to understand that we're just given the privileged opportunity to introduce Jesus Christ to somebody, right? And honestly, I just do it differently. I'm just not a big one to be like, I just don't do this to a kid. I just don't take the Bible and just like, John 3:16, Matthew, I just didn't work for me, right? But my hope is that through building relationship, through meeting a need, through just loving and walking life with people, that they'll just see a light and they'll just want to know more. I have a kid I was talking to last night as I was working on this, watching my Patriots game, sipping on my McDonald's sweet tea. I just recovered from the flu, so I'm really just physically not with it. And this dude decides he wants to text me that's on the block, Facebook me, that's on the block because I was just going on about the Patriots and he saw me post on his brother's page. And I've known this kid for 4.5 years. And we've never once had a conversation about Jesus. But he'll come, he'll hang out at basketball games, he sees me on the block, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so he's asking me all of these questions about different various things, and he's trying to ask me to go out and spend some time with him, one-on-one date, whatever, and I just always ignore that. And, not always, he's like, so let's play basketball one-on-one. And I'm like, I don't hoop. I was like, but we can read the Bible together one-on-one, right? Joking. And he's like, I would love that. I love God. This is a Latin king. He's like, I love God. But instead of being like, you love God? What God do you love? Because every time I see you, you high, all right. You in heaven, but what kind of God you love? But instead of doing that, I said, you know what? I never knew that you loved God. I would love to hear more about your perspective about who God is and what you think about him. I said, that would be off the chain. Let's get together next week just to hear about that. He was like, yeah, that'd be a good idea. I would love to. I'm like, you don't even know you're getting set up. You a sucker. You ain't gangster. I'm gangster, right? But I've known him for 4 years, and it wasn't until, for whatever reason, see, the Patriots are good. God used the Patriots to bring this conversation. Right? And so who knows what the conversation is going to lead to next week? Right? I just recently became very close with the chief of the Spanish Cobras, who's been gangbanging for 25 years. And he gave his life to Christ, and then the men of the church just used him, beat him down, and just left him on the side to bleed. They just wanted him to talk about but they didn't nurture him. They didn't disciple him. They didn't feed him. They weren't there for him when he wanted to go back and gangbang. They had this judgment, and he left the church. And for whatever reason, God has brought us together in relationship. And he's like, I ain't never met a Christian like you before. Never. And so now he's like, I want to introduce you to the Inca and the chief of this gang and this gang, and I want to introduce you to this person. And then we got our OG who's in prison right now. He gave his life to Christ in prison. He's getting ready to come out on the street. He said, I wrote a letter and told him about you and asked if he could write you a letter so that you two can talk. So when he gets out of jail, the three of us can get together and figure out what we can do for our kids. He's like, because I don't want my boys dying anymore. I want their help, what you're doing. He's like, I can tell you know how to work with kids and love kids, and you don't throw it, and you're going to be there. And I'm like, you're like, look at Jesus, right? And I didn't just go straight at him, and we talk, and I let him teach me about the streets. And I let him think that I don't know too much, but I do know. And then we just have these conversations, and he wants to get together and slowly talk about the Lord again. This is his journey with God. And as you reach people, stop trying to create what you think their walk with Christ should look like. Stop trying to say that, oh, you love God, but, you got braids, dude. You probably got like 12 tattoos and Nikes. Christians don't wear Nikes. You don't love God. He's over here like, leave me alone, please. I do love Jesus. I do love him. But we as Christians are so freaking arrogant that we think we know what your walk and what your healing process is going to look like. You are a Spanish Cobra chief. I know what you're doing. I know what you're about, but I don't know what God's doing in your heart. I can see some things stirring, but that's between you and the Lord. And all I'm doing is walking with you through it. When you meet somebody who doesn't know Christ, and I love this quote, and I have to share this with you. It's from a guy named Robert Lupton. And he says, when your goal is to, before I start this, and this is my beautiful, one of my best friends named Pablo, who just left Chicago. Y'all stole him from us. And he does Young Life Ministries. Anybody ever heard of Young Life? Yes, and so he does Southwest Denver Young Life, and he's been in Denver 2-3 months now. And we always have this conversation because he and I both, we kind of really don't like Christians too much. Right? And Mahatma Gandhi has this great saying where he's like, I love your Jesus, but it's your Christians I have problems with. Right? I've seen stuff where I love your God, but not sure about his fan club. Right? Like, I just have issues with Christians and their arrogance a lot of time. And when I read this quote, you'll understand why. He says, when my goal is to change people, I subtly communicate to them that there's something wrong with you and I'm okay. That you're ignorant and I'm enlightened. That you're wrong and I'm right. When you try to change people. And if at that point, your relationship is defined as healer to patient. Which means that you must remain strong and that other person has to remain sick in order for this relationship to work. People don't go to the doctors when they're well. And so the process of curing people then can't serve too long on this basis of a relationship if you want it to produce life and move forward. And it's a small wonder then when we come to save the poor that we find it difficult to enter into true community, into true relationship with the people that we think are needy. Pablo, was it you that was telling me the story about the lady that needed water in the trailer, and the ministry that goes in and they see that she's broken, and obviously it wasn't because you're looking at me like, keep it moving, Amy. There was a story, and I'm really going to mess it up, but I'm going to give you the gist of it, of a lady whose family was living in a trailer, and they didn't have like any water, they didn't have electricity, like they were just poor and without. But they were surviving. They made it work. And so this ministry kind of sees them and says, we need to save them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this, and we're going to raise money, and we're going to and go forth and go forth. Well, a couple weeks after the church got together, without talking to the family, got together and said, this is what we need to do for this family. Some things had started to change for this family. And they had found somebody that would give them buckets of water free of charge that they can then use to kind of like pour over and wash and do dishes or whatever. Still no running water. And so the church goes in and like, oh, but you still like, we need to get your pipes going. We need to. And the lady just looked at the church, at the people of the church, and they're like, we're doing fine. You guys are the one that thinks we need help. But this water is a blessing, and we're rejoicing in it. God has provided for us. Y'all are the ones that think we have the issue. The arrogance of us thinking, the arrogance of us defining what God looks like in somebody's life. And so my biggest thing that I want to share with you is, as I get ready to close, is that as you go into these communities, can you make a commitment and a promise that you will get out of God's way and let God be God and let God show off? And that you'll just love people and give them hope? That you'll just be a light? And that you'll let their journey with God be their journey with God? And not try to dictate what that means and what that looks like if it doesn't meet your standard of holiness or your standard of what love looks like. Because if you do that, you will run kids right back to the street. You will run people right back to the alcohol. You will run kids away from the one that loves them deeply and is desperate for them. If you dictate what you think it looks like. And I'll close with this, the final slide. This is my favorite picture probably ever. When I think about what coming to the Lord looks like, this is what it looks like to me. It looks like someone who just came and just said, I am a hot mess and I need you. It looks like me in a male version. It is a gangbanger that nobody said you got to drop your colors, you need to drop your gun, you need to pull your pants up, you need to put on, a clean outfit, you need to remove all your tattoos in order to represent and receive anything from Christ. This kid is at a crossroads. Jesus is not afraid of that gun. Jesus is not afraid of this kid. This is love. This is compassion. This is peace. This is joy. This is healing. This is brokenness. This is pride broken. This represents what we want. And what I love about this picture is the skin complexion of Jesus is the same as the skin complexion of this kid. And if this kid were Asian, I bet you Jesus would look Asian. And if this kid were white, that Jesus would look white. And if this kid were, I don't even know if he's black or Latino, well, he's probably black because it looks like he's a blood, but if he were, a Honduran, then Jesus would probably look Honduran too. Jamaican, Jesus would have braids, right? This is the picture of hope that we want to share. And so I close with this final quote as you look at this picture. It says, how can we give an answer to someone who asks about the hope that they see in our lives if they don't see it in our lives? You have the incredible privilege and the incredible responsibility of representing Christ and making a difference in the life of an unbeliever. And the truth is, you might be the only image of Christ that someone sees. Unbelievers don't read the Bible, they read Christians. When they see you, what are they reading? Do they see hope in chaos? Do they see peace when your world is falling apart? Do they see pain in your brokenness, but that you have hope that you're coming out? What do people see in you? And if you think that you're too small to make a difference, then you've never been alone with a mosquito. You have a purpose. You have a calling. Jesus loves you. He adores you. And so how I want to close this right now, and I don't know where, Adam, Pastor, is that I just feel like I want to pray that we should pray for those that maybe right now love Jesus, know Jesus, but they just don't have too much hope right now. And that's not a bad thing. 2 months ago, I was struggling with it. I'm the hope dealer. I was like, I can't tell nobody I don't have no hope, and I'm the hope dealer. But you right now are just struggling. And this is the place where it's safe to say, I love God and I do this for him. but I just, the hope is just, then I just want you to stand where you are, and do we have music, or do you have people that like play, or can you throw on a worship song, and I just want you to stand so that we can pray for you, that hope would be in you, that the light of Christ would heal and nurture you, and so that when you go forth to love other people, they can see that hope is reflected in you.